Hi, this is Dana, and on this channel I speak about spiritual warfare. I have another channel on astrology and a Facebook page which you will find in the description box below. The usual caveat, there are individuals who are impersonating me, stealing my identity in order to do harm on me and on others. I advise you avoid them. Use discernment and just avoid them. Is the best way to deal with them. They are under investigation, and literally all they do all day long and all night long is to put string on others, to harvest energy, to create fake narratives and timelines, to steal, kill, and destroy. Okay, now back to our topics. In this video, God has guided me to talk about two issues. One is literally just providing latest information about the neural links and the efforts to use technology in order to recreate the 3D matrix in the current circumstance when karma is being delivered to them. So they're trying to use this technology in order to recreate what is being dismantled by karma delivery. Yeah, and I already explained in previous video that this was launched during the Halloween celebration this year, and that literally it's recreation of a previous lifetime's bondages created by Nazi system, communist system, and even before that. It's literally the turning point when Scientology and science and technology is being used in order to recreate what karma delivery is dismantling. Yeah. And the new information which I am delivering now is based on my personal research, and namely the information is that one way in which this technology is being used is by attacking the brain stem and trying to inflict different types of programming. They stated publicly that they use this technology in order to help individuals writing on brain specific type of actions which their body are not able to carry out. For example, for those who cannot walk, this is the example they gave. For those who cannot walk, they would write on the brain some sort of information which helps them to walk. Now, my research shows that they use this technology in order to write information on brain stem to do quite the opposite. For those who are healthy, to be unable to carry out usual tasks, for example, walking or any other. Literally, this is done in order to inflict pain, to drain power. Of course, the energy body is affected by this, and so on. So this is the information which I've been guided to share. Now, another aspect that God asked me to convey in this message, particularly against the background of these developments, because this can be very discouraging and can be even confusing to people. Karma delivery basically dismantles the matrix and the 3D creation, but at the same time they come with technological advance to counter that and basically recreate in a different way, maybe even more evil, and with even more dramatic impact. But God has guided me to talk about one aspect of spiritual fighting, namely to understand that, for example, in spiritual fighting, victory looks totally different. So there's a lot of symbolism in spiritual fighting, and it's important to understand it because not everything that shines is gold, right? Even though the certain individuals might seem to get their way, they're actually losing. And I will give you another example so you will understand what I refer to. And this example, God chose and asked me to deliver it. God asked me to talk about my choice. I explained in another video that in 2016, because of certain developments in my life, I decided that I just want to leave the career that I was developing for 27 years by then, and just start a sort of a private practice, sort of say, in spirituality. I explained in another video that basically I was requested by individuals in very high positions within the church, the Romanian church, to give help, support in a certain circumstance where the church was under attack. And I figured that will be an opportunity for me to develop a practice. But at the time, I was thinking in the field of spirituality, but what I was thinking more was focused on creating a certain number of classes and PR strategy, sort of, for the church, because I explained at that time to that individual who was counselor to the patriarch. I explained to him, you are too isolated from the public. You don't interact well with the public, and you don't have a proper strategy to present yourself and to get people acquainted with the topic of spirituality. You're sort of in a passive approach, where basically you only talk to those who come to you to listen. But if you really want to put out messages and you want to actually become a player in educating people, you must remember that we are talking about Romania. Romania is a country in which during communism for almost 50 years the religion was forbidden. So you were punished for going to church. Really, you were punished for if you were going to church. So I explained to him, you must understand your public. In this country, people have been used to be at least to be displaying an atheist outlook. So you need to be more forthcoming and to embrace the missionary type, even if not in the traditional sense, but you have to have a strategy of communication with people, and you have to relate to the day-to-day life of modern era. Anyhow, I had a long discussion with him, and I explained to him the way you go about it is not beneficial to you. If you want to make an impact, I can tell you how you convey a message in order to actually relate to people and so on, but then you have to have people prepared to do this, meaning people that have abilities in communication, and they also have credibility both within the field of spirituality, but also among people that you want to communicate to. Anyhow, at the time I was thinking that I will develop a practice, sort of like a think tank, which will do research and will create a body of knowledge on how this can be achieved in order to create a bridge between the society and the church. Yeah, and this would have been like sort of like a healing between the two, between the society and the church, and it would have represented basically a progress, an evolution of both camps, basically, where they would have come together and so on. That was the plan then. Yeah. So for this reason, I said, okay, we'll take it gradually. I already made a plan. I already made a project, and I found financing for the project and so on. I had long discussion with a private company for project writing, particularly for European funds, in order to receive funds to purchase a headquarter, which would have been the place where these classes, courses, and debates would have developed. Yeah. And at the same time, I said, okay, if I do this, then I need to invest a lot of time and effort, but that's okay because I like spirituality, and that will be something that I would be interested in. And I figured, okay, I sold my apartment in the city, and I said I will move out at the outskirts of the city because you need a retreat kind of area in order to have these discussions and these classes and so on. And I will buy a house for myself, and in the same on the same land, I will buy a headquarter for this business where this will be developed. This project will be developed. And I did so. I started doing this. Of course, soon after I got to sell my apartment and move to the countryside area, which I chose, particularly with the spirituality purpose in mind, nearby a monastery which is very famous in Romania and so on, but also close enough to the city so people can drive easily for classes and so on. Those that have watched my videos know already by now what happened. A gang of so-called spiritual practitioners ganged up against me, and they stole the project, the money, the headquarter of my business, and then started gang stalking me and attacking me and so on and so forth. Some of them are part of a convent, which is here in the neighborhood located. And by the time they started this aggressive strategy towards me, I already sold my apartment in the city, and I moved my own house in the area. So you can imagine how this situation didn't look very good at some point, because I was like, okay, so they stole my business, they stole my money, they stole my project, my intellectual property, because I built that project and so on. And now I also sold my apartment in the city, and I moved right here among them. And actually, when I moved here, there was nobody. It was a really empty place. They came afterwards and they moved next to me. But the point is, I was like, now I'm also surrounded by them, and it didn't really look good, a lot of attacks started. I was forced to resign in the end due to their aggressions and their slander and so on. And so you see how this could, to anyone that doesn't have the power and the depth of understanding symbolism, this can look like like losing, like a losing hand in poker. God says, like a losing hand in poker, and then I started, of course, the spiritual fighting consciously, which is still happening, and it's been for years now. And God was talking to me the other day, and he said, no matter how you switch this topic around, you still won, because you moved in this area in order to build a spiritual project which they stole from you. And they started a campaign to slander your name, to destroy your reputation, to cut you off, and to force you to resign, and so many other things that they have done. But and literally God pointed this out to me. But God said, but in terms of spirituality, through the spiritual fighting which you have been carrying out, and the spiritual elevation and upranking that you have won through your spiritual fighting, you in fact reached your goal, namely to do and create a spiritual project in which you invested yourself. You learned much more in terms of spirituality than you intended initially, because initially you only intended to teach them about communication and how to present themselves to the world. But through the type of spiritual fighting you have been carrying out, you understood much more important information about who they are in reality, not what you thought they were at the time. So the type of spiritual experience that you have gained, and the spiritual work you have carried out in these years, amounts to what you initially stated, that you are creating a spiritual project. But in effect, it's much more powerful, much more valuable to the spirituality in itself, because you already delved into much deeper truths and information, much more value to the people than what you initially intended to do, because initially they would have just benefited of your expertise in terms of communication and PR and public diplomacy, but you didn't know the truth about who they are, namely that they work with different cults, of some of them satanic cults, that they are part of different convents, that they are actually partners into the matrix with those who created the matrix, and so on and so forth. You learned how they created all of this. You learned how people can fight and heal from all of this. So you actually advanced in terms of spirituality much more than you actually planned and you expected. You still did work in terms of spirituality. So you actually won, even if they created a whole hell for you in trying to stop you to get involved in spirituality and so on. Now, of course, God said, you were gonna learn about this anyway. This is why they started this war against you when you came close to spirituality. They pushed you into this area, particularly because they had this convent in the area. So they can actually gang up against you and have more powerful attacks at you. They knew what you didn't know, namely that you will learn truths which they are trying to hide, because you had divine rights to a certain ranking which was much above them, higher than them. So this is what sorry, this is why they ganged up against you. You see, this is something that annoys them, of course. So basically what God asked me to talk about is that although something might seem like a failure, you must always look at the symbolism and what God is doing in your life with that particular topic, because God can switch that around in many different ways. And at any point in time, even if you seem to have a losing hand in poker, you still get to win the game, you know, and you still get to be a winner, although to unexperienced witness, it might seem like you're losing. But in effect, this is exactly what God was pointing out to me. But in effect, you succeeded to do what you were planning to do, just in a different shape, because you didn't know enough information so you can actually have a very clear projection of that project. You only wanted to do communication because this is what they asked you. But in effect, when you got close to the topic, even in spite of all their efforts to scare you off, to destroy you, to kill you, to scare you, to so on and so, you succeeded to continue your spiritual work, and you succeeded to reach much more in-depth information about the topic, and you produced a much more valuable outcome than you intended initially when you approached this topic. Yeah, so that is definitely a victory. Yeah, so I just gave you this example. God chose this example, and I just gave you this example so you will understand how you, when you do spiritual fighting, which we are all called to do at this point in time, yeah, you must always look at the symbolism of issues. That is one thing, because many times if you look from a normal perspective, from a 3D perspective, it can seem like you lost the game, but in effect you won the game, just you won it in a different way than you expected it to develop. That's all. Yeah, that is one thing. Another thing which is also related to this, but to many other issues, and this is very important to understand, it's that as God said, much of the information, the most important information, actually, God said, the most important information that you will uncover in your spiritual fighting and spiritual work comes unexpectedly. And you get to learn that information only when you qualify. You will not know ahead of time that is coming to you. It will always come as a surprise because it's hidden information. Yeah, so as you advance, even if you don't know where you're going yet, so it just doesn't seem that you reached the pot of gold. God says the pot of gold in your work. You keep going because you don't know when that is gonna appear. It doesn't come with a whistle to let you know ahead of time that is coming. So you need to keep going. You need to keep going because most of the information which is of the highest value in your spiritual work, you will receive it when you qualify for it and when you unlock certain situations. While you do the usual spiritual fighting of bondage breaking and you keep carrying on and carrying on, you sometimes it's amazing how just by using one word you unlock information. By making a claim for justice, God will reveal to you information which has been blocked from you through bondage creation on you. There are many situations like this that I have been through, and every time I find it amazing and a miracle in itself that in many circumstances in which I claimed justice without understanding fully the situation, but just being shown that there is an injustice there. And all of a sudden, a door opened for me, and something that I was supposed to find out and to work with and to help me, even gift activation and so on, I received through that. And if I wouldn't have said that claim of justice, I wouldn't have opened that door. Nobody warned me that after I claimed justice, and actually I just claimed justice because I knew that this is what I'm supposed to do. I didn't claim justice because I knew I will open a door by doing that. I just claimed justice, and then I witnessed a miracle, Sorry. So I'm advising, of course, everyone to keep going. This is also this latest information, namely that most important information you find out unexpectedly as a surprise while you're carrying on your spiritual fighting not necessarily expecting that miracle. God has shown me, to make a reference now, to the previous videos where I was speaking about connecting with your ancestors from the same race, for receiving secret information related to your race, and whatever purpose and weapons and wisdom and knowledge and so on you have. God has guided me to say this, that this is valid for that as well. Namely, you will learn that information as you move along and you break the bondage. Nobody will tell you in this month and at this day and at this hour you will receive the information. And you cannot sit on yourself and just wait. You have to carry out the spiritual fighting, and at some point, unexpectedly, when you will reach the proper timing and the proper elevation and the proper activation, all of the sudden you will find out the information which you need to know. Yeah. So don't expect that somebody will inform you and you schedule a time when to meet the ancestor from your race. You will meet the ancestor from your race, but keep in mind what I said. You still need to do the spiritual fighting in order to qualify to receive that information. So you must carry on the spiritual fighting, and imagine that even this discussion that I had with God, in which God was pointing out, you did actually create a project in spirituality by what you did all these years. Even though when you thought initially of a project in spirituality, you were thinking of totally different issues, and you thought it's going to look totally different. And even in spite of all the blockages they created for you, you still created a project in spirituality, and you produced much more valuable outcome than you were planning initially to do. So as even in this issue, I kept going. This is something that God has pointed out to me recently. We are now at the end of 2022, and I've been doing this since I arrived here in this location, 2016. So I'm showing this to you so you will understand. You must keep going. You must keep going and keep doing the bondage breaking. And at some point, you turn around and look back and it all makes sense. Or it makes a different type of sense than you imagined initially, but it's much more to the point and much more valuable, as God says. Yeah. So yeah, I think this is the message that God wanted me to convey. I'm not gonna review now all of them because they're different messages. I'm just hoping that you paid attention and that you take this information and apply it to your personal situation, so you will understand how this can help you.